Hello, my friend. Welcome to the study. It's good to see you here today. In the height of the northern summer, Europe is having lots of heat waves, and it's over 30 degrees in much of the continent. But here in Britain, where I had hoped to show you a little bit of my own cottage garden here, we have 18 degrees and wind and rain. It's that glorious sea climate that we have here on the island. But it does mean that we don't get the hot summer. So today, I wanted to share with you some bucolic dreams. Here from the Palace of Versailles. And there we see the chateau itself, the palace, and all of its beautiful gardens. But here, in the erstwhile region of Trianon, is a little man-made, or rather model, hamlet, a little model village, a farm village, Hameau de la Reine, meaning Marie Antoinette. So, like classical authors, philosophers, and literary aficionados before her, as well as those medieval stories, Marie Antoinette, among this difficult life in Versailles, where all eyes were on you, where all the nobles were congregated, and the business of state was conducted 24/7. She desired a place that was peaceful, that had this atmosphere of retreating from the stresses and cares of the world, retreating from that spotlight into a carefree existence in the countryside. And so this Hameau, this little hamlet, was built in the Petit Trianon. So we'll look at that today, and I will show you a few pictures from some of the flowers in my own garden, and we'll have lots of paper sounds, a little bit of history, and nice stories for relaxation and sleep. Here we have an old tourist map of Versailles and its beautiful promenades, walkways. Look at them all. You could spend days walking through the formal gardens, the wooded areas, the fountains. Look at that, there's the Neptune fountain there. Reservoir. And this grand canal. But over here is the Grand Trianon, a little Trianon palace where Marie Antoinette would entertain guests, and its smaller gardens there, not as grand as the Sun King's chateau. And here, in this little area, Marie Antoinette had the Trianon Gardens reconfigured starting in 1777. First, the English gardens were created. The Temple of Hameau and Follies built. And then, in 1783, Richard Meek oversaw the extension of the gardens to the north, and a model village was set around an artificial lake. The Petit Trianon was originally built for Madame de Pompadour under the reign of Louis XV as a private domain, and circling the Petit Trianon was the Jardin Anglais, a garden more in the English cottage style and less structured than the French style, featuring meadow flowers and cottage plants. The Trianon at that time had been an arboretum. Richard Meek's work began in the summer of 1783, and under the direction of Antoine Richard, the Queen's gardener, replaced Louis XV's famous botanical garden with a more informal and natural garden of winding paths, curving canals, and lakes. Meek modified the landscape design to provide vistas of lawn to west and north of the Petit Trianon, encircled by belts of lawn and trees. Beyond the lake to the north, the Hameau was sited like a garden stage set, inspired aesthetically by Dutch and Flemish landscape paintings, and philosophically by Jean-Jacques Rousseau's cult of nature. In 1786, the Queen's Hamlet retreat was complete, a bucolic fantasy combining various influences from rural settings and buildings, creating its own style of simple charm. On the eastern bank of the little man-made lake, cottages are arranged in a crescent, their reflections contributing to the peaceful imagery of a hidden, provincial, idyllic locus amenus, a peaceful countryside retreat for relaxation and inspiration. Here, the Queen entertained her closest friends and enjoyed time away from the pressures of the court. The building plan included a working dairy, dovecote, boudoir, a barn, a mill to the south of the stone bridge spanning the stream, and a tower in the form of a lighthouse, fisherman's cottage, and a guardhouse. The Marlborough Tower overlooks the lake, and further down the bank is the farm with stables, pigsty, sheep pen, and hen house, each having its own kitchen garden, orchard, or flower garden. The largest and most famous of these is the Queen's house, connected to the billiard room by a curved wooden gallery, and is at the center of this hamlet. The cottage's rustic facades, concealed lavishly decorated and often richly furnished rococo interiors created by Georges Jacob and Jean-Henri Reine, where the Queen could host intimate parties. Follies had come into vogue with the advent of tourism, the grand tours of the young nobility who went to see the ruins of bygone ages and came home to construct their own model ruins on their country estates for atmosphere and contemplation. Marie Antoinette's favourite architect, Meek, used as inspiration the Prince Condé's Hameau de Chantilly, which also had a model farm, such being the fashion among the French aristocracy. Meek's primary purpose was to add to the ambiance of the Petit Trianon, creating the illusion that it was deep in the countryside rather than within the confines of the Palace of Versailles, with a transformation from formal pattern gardens into a working farm. The buildings are of a hybrid architectural style of Norman, Flemish, and French. The cottages have Norman half-timbered facades and reed coverings, while the brick, sparrow-stepped gables and stained glass windows are distinctly Flemish. The roofs, with dormer windows and plaster-covered facades, are of French influence. In addition to the head farmer Boussard, Marie Antoinette hired a team of gardeners, a rat catcher, a mole catcher, 2 herdsmen, and various servants to work on the estate, as well as having animals brought in from Switzerland to be raised on the farm. There were in all 12 cottages constructed in the hamlet, 5 for use by the Queen, and 7 used functionally for agriculture. The Queen's house and billiard room is situated in the middle of the hamlet. 2 rustic buildings are connected by a curved covered gallery. A spiral staircase leads to the upper floor at one end of the house. These buildings included the Queen's private chambers, salons, and parlours. The upper level comprises the petit salon and an anteroom in the form of a Chinese cabinet. A large living room is there with wood panelling hung with Swiss-style woolen tapestries. From the room's 6 windows, the Queen could overlook the activity of the hamlet. At the centre of this living room is a harpsichord which Marie Antoinette enjoyed playing. On the ground floor, paved with slabs of stone, the building includes a backgammon room and a dining room. The lyre-backed chairs in mahogany lined with green morocco were created by Georges Jacob. On the upper level of the billiard room is a small apartment which seems to have been inhabited by the architect Richard Meek and has 5 rooms, including a library. The boudoir is the smallest structure, and it was there that Queen Marie Antoinette would retire by herself, a sort of private room that someone of her status was unlikely to enjoy in a palace like Versailles. The mill, built and fitted from 1783 to 1788, features a wheel driven by a stream that was directed from the Grand Lake, but it is only decorative and did not grind. Rather, it served as a laundry. Nevertheless, it is one of the most picturesque structures in the hamlet. The circular marble tower on the shore of the lake is also decorative. It was originally called the fishery tower, said to have been inspired by a popular lullaby. Another story tells of sending signals to the palace of Versailles from the top of this tower. Boating parties would set off from this, and fishing equipment was stored in the lower level. The réchauffoir is a warming room, recessed at the rear of the Queen's house. It has a stone interior and a large kitchen, bakery, fireplace and pantry, as well as storage for linen and silver. It was used to prepare the dishes for dinners given by the Queen. The laiterie, or dairy, was originally one of two, one in which the dairy products themselves were made, and the other in which the Queen tasted them. These rooms are of light-coloured marble and always kept spotlessly clean. The farm included 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a dining room. This farmhouse was well stocked with animals and had vegetable gardens, its crops providing agricultural and culinary experimentation at Versailles. The head farmer, Boussard, lived here. The dovecote was near the lake. Roosters and hens of various species were brought from the west of France and settled in the aviary in 1785. The guardhouse is situated on the edge of the field near the woods. Its original occupant was Swiss guard Jean Bercy, who lived there with his family. There was also a grange or barn, which could serve as a ballroom. Contrary to the deeply entrenched image of Marie Antoinette, the Queen and her entourage did not play at being farmers or shepherdesses amidst these bucolic surroundings, with sheep all trussed up in colourful ribbons. In fact, Marie Antoinette managed the estate, overseeing various works, correcting and approving plans, talking with the head farmer and labourers, and seeing to it that the hamlet provided a functioning farm, a point upon which she insisted, so that it could serve as an educational role for the royal children, with its vineyards, fields, orchards, vegetable gardens producing fruits and vegetables, all consumed at the royal table, as well as being a retreat for peaceful walks. While at the Hameau, Marie Antoinette often dressed in a sun hat of bergère and informal muslin dress, or a polonaise gown, or a chemise à la reine, a dress worn without panier and with a high waistline, a fashion worn by women in warmer colonial climates, and popularized amongst the aristocracy via Marie Antoinette, a fashion that laid the foundations for Regency and Empire fashion in the later decades following the Revolution. Completely enclosed by fences and walls, only intimates of the Queen were allowed access to this idyllic Hameau. Not much different from that of the English gentry managing their country estates, Marie Antoinette's attempts to escape the regulated life of the court at Versailles and to create a functional retreat became the object of criticism of the increasingly disgruntled French populace. During the Revolution, a polemic swirled around the Hameau, in which the Queen was accused of being frivolous, and a seemingly innocent action was open to the interpretation and motivation of the crowds. The hamlets suffered dilapidation and neglect during the Revolution, the barn itself having burned down. Napoleon Bonaparte ordered a full restoration between 1810 and 1812, during which two of the most dilapidated structures were torn down, including the barn and the working dairy. In the 1930s, a donation from John Rockefeller enabled a second renovation, and another part of the hamlet was restored again in the late 20th century, with some buildings, including the windmill, returned to their original configuration. The farm, which almost totally disappeared over the course of the 19th century, was reconstructed in 2006 and is now home to a variety of animals, all looked after by the Foundation for Animal Welfare. It is perhaps sad that Marie Antoinette was victim at the end of such a great age of reason and enlightenment to a mob mentality, but such is history. And appropriately, Rousseau, before it, wrote, "Nature never deceives us. It is we who deceive ourselves." It is in man's heart that the life of nature's spectacle exists. To see it, one must feel it. This seems to resonate a philosophical truth that was later also hinted at and described by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, that to truly see, we must see with our hearts. And at the end of Marie Antoinette's life and her retreat at the Hameau, Rousseau's words are perhaps very apropos. He writes that everything made by man may be destroyed by man. There are no ineffaceable characters except those engraved by nature, and nature makes neither princes nor rich men nor great lords. It's been a pleasure, my friend, to go with you down the alleyways of the Chateau of Versailles, through the green gardens, and around the small village created specifically to get away and relax. I hope it's been relaxing for you, and then you'll have beautiful, peaceful dreams. Be good to yourself, my friend. Be kind to others, and be extraordinary.